let's talk to you about 5 criminally underrated epic champions in Raid Shadow Legends. You probably have them in your vault. They can probably help you, so let's get right into it. I am Mad Camper, and this is another video on Raid Shadow Legends. Let's go. So let's talk about the 5 champions I believe are criminally underrated in Raid Shadow Legends. They're all epics. They're all here on the same team. Now, this is not a team I would advise putting together for Fire Night. I just put the 5 together in a dungeon just so you can kind of see their abilities. But these 5 champions, I promise you, you use one of them, 2 of them in combination with other champions you have, legendaries, ninjas, the big boys of the world, big girls of the world, you know, you name it. And they are going to help you get through content. I'm talking Hydra, I'm talking Clan Boss, I'm talking Dungeons and Doom Tower, obviously Faction Wars. So these 5 here, let's talk about them. First off, you have Hope. Hope's biggest deal is that she has a 20% shield based on her HP on a 4-turn cooldown. Wish it was a 3-turn cooldown, but whatever, she was buffed and it's still so incredibly strong. She also has an increased buff and a decrease, a chance to strip the enemy. Altogether, very strong kit for her, and something that I think was very underrated. She is one of the few epic champions that has over 21,000 HP. That makes for some pretty significant shields. Right here, the one you're looking at is 110,000 HP, not even in a shield set, not even my best HP gear. So you can just imagine how strong you can build a champion when you can get these kind of stats out of her to be able to survive rounds. And every 4 turns, she's going to put that up. If you're thinking even next level, put her in a shield set and then lock it so that she uses her shield set on her 3rd turn, and then you get even more value out of her in a comp. So don't sleep on Hope. She is probably the number 1 on the list for me out of this group. But close second is got to be Thanos. I don't know why he has never gotten the love he's deserved. In the very early game, people loved him. He was a good troll for early arena because he had an A1 sleep, kind of a poor man's Siffy because it could be resisted. But in the early arena, a lot of people didn't have resistance, so he would just get away with doing it, and you could use him ad nauseum. But on top of that, the biggest thing that he does is he heals for 26,000 on an AoE that also includes an increased defense. That is such a strong ability, an AoE that heals for that significant amount of damage, especially when paired with someone like Hope or another shield set support champion. Very strong, very underrated. There it is, Oakskin, 26,514. Again, keep in mind that he doesn't have the health that Hope does, so you can't really push it quite as far. But with the right gear, you can get that up to about 30,000, I think is what I had when I originally did a video on him. So you might want to check that out. He is one of the I built them so you don't have to. Next up, Rion. So Rion's a newer champion. You get her from the Doom Tower. She's just got an overall great support kit. It doesn't seem flashy, and I think the fact that it's not flashy is probably why she doesn't get as much, doesn't get as heralded or lauded as an amazing champion as some of the rest. But she is very strong. She can revive with HP and turn meter. She's got a weaken on her A2, and she pairs really well with, I think it's Akoth and Euros, the 2 big flamey metal, the big things from the boss. And she can actually instantly revive them with, I think it's 50% HP. So a very strong overall kit. The reason why you want to bring her in is you kind of need if you don't have a speed team, a seer team, a team that can absolutely just run over waves easily, you're probably going to need a reviver. If you need a reviver, she is one of the few champions that actually has a revive. It's actually kind of amazing how few champions have revive in this game. I've actually got it up on a Yumi Love. By the way, Yumi Love, still one of the greatest resources in Raid Shadow Legends. You've got, for epic champions, you have 4 that have an AoE revive and another 6 that have a targeted revive. And then I don't even include the randoms and the self revive because that doesn't really help you. And then there's special condition ones, like when it kills an enemy revives. Those are so hard to use. I don't really like them. But just think, that's not a lot of champions that have revive. And of course the legendaries, there's only 4 AoE revive legendaries and 4 target revive legendaries. So overall, you don't have a lot of choice. So here's an option for you. Next up on the list, and probably nearest and dearest to my heart, is Lightsworn. Lightsworn is, I don't know why he gets such a bad rap. He is a amazing champion. He was good. He put me through unkillable clown boss forever. He has such a great kit. The problem is in him is probably that each component of his kit is better done by someone else. And of course, Vizix pretty much was the death knell in this guy. He is really good for Fire Knight. Unfortunately, the rest of the team isn't. But even here, we can show you, like, you're watching them in the background, and they're just not dying because it's such a strong, sustained team that even though we don't have enough hits on the shield, we don't have enough turn meter control to really make this work. It's actually a pretty good showing of how strong this team can be, because you just can't kill them ever. But sorry, back to Lightsworn. He's got an A1 that does a 10% decrease turn meter. He's got an A2 that puts down a slow and a decrease attack, which is really strong. And he's got an A3 that puts up a revive on death with a defense up. All very strong kit. He is actually very underrated on the damage he can deal. I think the biggest problem with it is it's all single target, so people don't necessarily consider it. But that A2 hits for 60 to 70,000 against mobs in this particular scenario. It's very strong. It's an actually very strong thing. Consider Lightsworn if you're trying to get your Fire Knight 24-25. That 3-hit A1 is amazing. Plus you've got the decreased attack, so if you're not keeping the shield closed, there's a good opportunity for you on a champion. But his biggest strength is just the fact that he makes your team tankier, stronger, and in a champion that can do some pretty strong damage. Fifth on the list is Luria. I brought Luria in here, and Luria has been kind of outpaced by a lot of champions in a lot of areas, but the reality is she has an AoE freeze, which locks down champions. She can block revive on her skill, and she hits really hard. Her biggest knock is the fact that she has like 2 HP, so you often have to sacrifice some of her damage in order to make her survivable, or make sure that you have an AoE revive or shields or unkillable or that sort of thing. But absolutely a very strong overall set. Now let's just talk about the actual champions. We're going to go in here. Obviously, I'm actually shocked at 7 minutes. They weren't even anywhere close to dying. You get 1.8 million in heals. Like, how is that not amazing? So let's take a look at the champions in and of themselves. Can I do recently used first? Oh, I can. Look at that. So first we have Lightsworn. His big deal, again, like I said, he's got an A3 that has an increased defense and a revive on death. It's a 4-turn cooldown. His A2 does significant damage. Also has a decreased attack, decreased speed, and the 3-hit A1 that has a turn meter of 10%. I really wish, because Vizix is a free login champion and she does it so much better, her kit overall so much stronger in many, many areas. I wish they would change this to each hit has a 10% or even a percentage chance to 10%, so that you could get more than 10% turn meter, because when you cut that in half in the higher level dungeons, it makes it a lot less effective, and that's really unfair for a champion that should be an absolute no-brainer for a Fire Knight team, having a multi-hit A1 with turn meter decrease. Next up, we talked about Rion the Conjurer. Again, Master of Summons has a forget the Akoth and Euros thing, but just revives a dead ally with 50% HP, then fills their turn meters by 50%. Will also put a block debuffs on them for 2 turns. Very strong. It is a target, not an AoE. Makes it a little less, but for an epic, very strong. It's on a 4-turn cooldown with a couple books in it. Sweeping Dismissal is a 75% chance of removing all buffs and all enemies, bookable to 100%. So a full strip, which a lot of people don't remember that Rion does have a strip with a weaken, puts a weaken debuff, and just a little extra something. If that team that we put together had a decreased defense, like a Tayrel, or perfect pairing for Lights or Stag Knight. Wow. Perfect pairing for Stag Knight, because then you get that defense down, you get the weaken, you get the strip. It's such a strong ability on a 3-turn cooldown, very criminally underrated. And then on top of it has a 75% chance when booked to block buffs. Now again, single enemy, single target, not great, but this is a champion that you can use when you're manualing Hydra boss, because you can set that on the one champion that puts a reflect damage on themselves, and it just makes life a whole lot easier for you. Also, the the boss that does the damage. I can't remember all their names. Wrath, I think it is, that does the turn count up. He puts a bunch of stuff on him when he goes crazy. Might be a good option for there as well. But overall, it's a good secondary option if you don't have the champions you're looking for the Hydra. Thanos, we talked about it. Wither. This is not a big deal. I didn't put full books into it. It does decrease the duration of all enemy buffs by 1 turn. Probably stronger than I gave it credit for when I first built him, which was a long time ago. It might have been before the actual I Built Them series. It might have been a precursor of just a showcase. I'm not too sure. It was very early on. I'd probably book them out and use this a little bit more effectively now. There's a lot more content where that is a problem, whereas back when I did this, it was mainly just to help you through 20 level dungeons. It doesn't matter affinity because he's not there for damage. He doesn't do damage. It's very weak. But this oak skin is what it's all about, which is a 60% decreased defense and 25% of this champion's max HP. His HP is a little 17.8, but look, I can still get him. I can still get him at 88,000 HP with 216 speed and some good survivability stats. So overall, accuracy is a little low, but I'm sure we could easily pump that up if we chose, perception gear, for example, just to get enough for that A1, which of course puts on that Spring Lullaby, which, as I mentioned before, is like a very poor man's Siphi, given that it's only a 15% chance to start, which is silly. This can be sneaky good, better than I probably originally gave it credit for, but again, the percentages are so low that even, 15, 25, 35, 40, 50% chance, 50-50, not bad. It might be a little bit stronger use if fully booked and being used with accuracy. Hope, one of my favorite epic champions of the game. Anytime I'm trying to create content, I always go to her first. I wish they would redo her model because she looks like she's suffering of some, I don't know, is that scurvy? I don't know, she's got a pigment issue. I shouldn't shame her for it. She's got a scar. She's a battler. But, so her Holy Storm has that 50 bookable to 75% chance of removing all buffs from all enemies. I'm never a fan of the 75% chance. Always drives me, it drives me nuts because you're just going to use someone that has 100%, like, Madame Saris. But whatever, still a champion that can do that. Hearten has that increases, I said 20% in the thing, it's actually 25%. Increases the duration of buffs on all allies by 1 turn and places a shield buff equal to 25% of this champion's HP on all allies for 2 turns. I will say one thing, I wish they'd reverse that so that she increased the buff of the shield by 1 turn as well. I know that that's kind of, it would be cheating because then it's really a 3-turn turnaround. But honestly, again, because she's an epic, it is a 4-turn cooldown. Having a 3-turn on everyone but her to be a 2-turn because she would have used her turn. I still think it's a good idea. I wish they would do it. Probably will never happen. And then on top of it, she does have a block buffs on her A1. It's a 50% chance. Again, similar to Rion, very strong situationally, but it's an A1 ability, which is always nice. And then finally, let's talk about Luria. Luria, she has a block buff. Seems like everyone has a block buff. Single enemy, 100% chance. She hits very hard, but the big deal is here. She has a freeze and block revive. It's a 75% chance of placing that freeze. And of course, the block revive is if she kills someone. Very good damage. Her ever-loving worst attribute is that 13,000 HP. I sacrificed some of her attack to try to get it higher. She still was not the best for survivability. It's got to be very good. That you'd have to pair her with the revive champion, which is why I chose Rion in this grouping, because I want to give you, and I didn't mean to, oh god, not a builder. That actually is better than the last one. I don't know if it's great. I didn't look at it because we're not spending, but I was kind of taking a little peek, and I didn't look at it. I just took a little peek. I looked at it, okay, but I didn't buy it. I didn't inhale. I want to do one honorable mention. That's Fodbar the Bard. I think that Fodbar is another criminally underrated champion. Look, the reality is that the dwarves got a ton of love. It was so hard to beat the Faction Wars 21, and then Melga. Melga made all the difference, but there were a ton of other dwarves. When you look at the dwarves they added, epic dwarves that they added, that just made that whole thing so much easier, right? Geomancer, not necessarily for that, but just in general, amazing. Rearguard was always around. Runekeeper Dadrick was added. He's amazing. Melga was top tier. You could cheese it a bit with Rockbreaker. I know some people that even use Ragnar Demetha. I'm sure she's amazing for it, but we're kind of already past that. Same with Quinella. But the real deal, Foldbor never gets talked about. And I think, again, actually I can just look at his kit from here. Again, I think it's criminally underrated. The big deal with him is that it's a decreased defense. So you've got a lot of hard-hitting champions, both epics and legendary champions, that can do damage in this world. And then you add that decreased defense on a 4-turn cooldown, just makes everything so much quicker. And for my team, which I had completed long before I had Trunda, long before I had used Beardall. I used Beardall to complete Faction Wars Dwarves originally, but I've probably cut that time in a third or less because of Foldbor, because having that decreased defense and then having top tier nukers like now I have Trunda makes everything so much easier, so much quicker. So criminally underrated with 100 speed, like very strong overall champion. Also has a single target stun on him and a heal reduction on his A1. So overall, a honorable mention to Foldbor. So those are the 5+1 epic champions that I believe are criminally underrated in this game. Let me know in the comments down below, what do you think is the most criminally underrated epic champion for you? Maybe we'll do a future video on them. But in the meantime, as always, thank you for joining me in this video. Please like and subscribe. And of course, be kind, be safe, and we'll see you in the next video.